Welcome to the very first podcast of Tell Me Your Story. This is a podcast that I started thinking about a while back. I wish that I could take credit for this idea. This idea came from Pastor Chad Warren. I went up to Montana and visited him and his church, and he was doing this. He was talking to men about their stories and their connections. And Mark 5 kept going through my head, this idea of, if you remember Mark 5, Jesus heals this demon-possessed man, and then he says, go home to your people and tell them how much the Lord has done for you, and he has had mercy on you. And so I started thinking, there's all kinds of stories here in the Arkansas Valley of southeastern Colorado. And so I want to thank Chad Warren for the idea, and welcome our very first guest on our very first podcast. Trent Ryan is here with us, and Trent's going to tell us his story, and so we'll get into that in just a few minutes. But one of the things that I wanted to do with this podcast was to let people kind of hear other people's story, how they came to Christ, their journey, the connections that they've made, the spots that they've stopped in. And because everybody's story is different. My story is different than your story. Some stories that you'll hear on this podcast are quite outrageous. I think we'll probably hear a little bit of that this morning with Trent. Some of them are just, there's this straight connection from A to B. I've been a Christian for my entire life. I can't remember not being a Christian. No story is more valid than another story, but there is that idea of sometimes people hear stories and they connect with them and they hear them. And so I've invited Trent to be my very first guest. And so, let's go ahead and open with prayer, and then we'll get into it. Father God, we thank you for this time that we have together. I pray for Trent. I pray for him as he shares his story, that first and foremost, you might be glorified, Father God. And so this time that we have is for you. We pray that people might hear this story and come closer to you because of it. So just be with Trent and be with us as we share this time together, that you might be glorified. In Jesus' name, amen. And amen. So here's the deal. Do you tell me if I get it right or not? Trent and I kind of met at a Legion meeting, American Legion meeting.
Well, not supposed to call it that, right? Coffee and Donuts is open to all veterans.
Excuse me.
It's not a Legion specific.
It's not a Legion specific thing.
Wednesday morning coffee and donuts with veterans.
There you go, Wednesday morning. And if you're a veteran out there in the Arkansas Valley, especially in La Junta, every Wednesday morning started at like 8:30. 8:30 we have donuts and coffee, and you're more than welcome to come. You don't need to be a member of the Legion.
Or even a veteran. Quick disclaimer, I am, not a veteran. I work with the Ark Valley Veterans Program and some other veteran grant programs, and that's how I found my way around that table. But it's a great for allies, supporters, and all the above.
And Trent, you are the CEO, founder, runner, everything at Ark Valley Entertainment.
Yeah, that's been a great journey that kind of birthed out of COVID. That was a bit of a COVID baby, just during that time when there was a lot of shutdowns of events, weddings, graduations, birthdays, all these different things got hit simultaneously with the grocery stores and things like that. I remember I was home for a college vacation. I was off of college for the summer, and I had all this DJ equipment just kind of sitting around in the closet, and saw all these posts on the word of mouth pages and all these different things of pure catastrophe within the DJ world, right? It was like, oh, I'm 2 weeks out from my wedding and the DJ just canceled, and oh, I'm so on and so forth, graduations, proms, bar mitzvahs, I mean, whatever have you. And I'm just sitting there thinking, all these DJs are pulling out of these events because they're they're licensed LLC, they got the EIN and everything, they're official companies, and they have to follow those regulations. I was like, and now I look back, I think the best way to state it is I was a privateer at the time. So I didn't necessarily have to regulate myself under those same stipulations during the COVID crisis, right? So I was like, hey, I can kind of jump in and fill some of this void. I was getting a hold of people, reaching out to people making these posts, and I was like, hey, I can step in, I can DJ, I can cover this event, I'm free this date. And then it kind of shot back of, well, in this situation, we're very low budget, we don't have much, a couple whatever, a couple $100 here or there, and I just kind of started very budget based, just right in the middle of COVID, of like, hey, we only have this much money to even pull this off. Is this enough? Sure. That's not a problem for me, and came out. And that's really when it kind of started hitting the wheels for me and my private company, because before then I was always a DJ under different houses or different companies. I had been in the DJ business for quite a few years before that, but this was really kind of the start of quote unquote my own thing.
Right.
And it really was just to kind of step in and help people out that were in these panics and crises over ruined events during COVID. And then things slowed down quite a bit with it. I was at the radio station here in our area I was the general manager over there for about a year, almost two. And that was a whole different experience and a whole different walk. And that definitely brought me a lot more expertise in advertising, marketing, reaching out to clientele, putting together sales packages and sheets and different things like that. So definitely very grateful for that experience. This here reminds me a lot of, being on the radio show and things like that. So it was nice to kind of be back in this setting. But that when that came to an end, radio world, and I mean that's cutthroat, dude. That's a busy business, and I'm proud of the things that we were able to do. But terms are never very long in that industry, and so I'm grateful for my term. And when my term came to an end, I was in that great debate of, well, what to do next, and it's one of those, do I jump in? And I've always had a pretty strong work ethic and always really try to build what I'm a part of. And it kind of came to that conversation with myself of, am I going to continue chasing the build of other people's projects? Like I'll join a company, I'll join an industry, I'll join this, join that, and work really, really hard. And at the end of the day, there's never really that job security.
Right.
You're investing, you're pouring your whole bucket into this place, this organization, and you just can't say with certainty a year or 2, 3, 5, 10 years from now, even if you do everything right and you are the perfect model employee, which I'm not saying I ever was. No one's perfect, we all know that, but that was just kind of a daunting idea that just kept kind of sitting on me, and I was really uncomfortable with that. And I was like, I'm kind of tired of that. Like, I'm tired of giving this energy, giving my time, giving my schedule to another business, another company. It's like, I've had this company for about a year or two now, that I've put on the back burner and super part-time and haven't really took serious. And I was like kind of gauging the results we had at the radio station when I was giving 50, 60 an hour weeks into that thing. And I was like, man, I wonder if I could even, if I could even come in at half of that result. If I were to give myself and my company 50, 60 hours a week, and if I were to even come in at half of the result that I have here, had there, that would be a success. That would work. We could make that. I mean, that fits the books, that fits the bills, that fits the budget. I mean, that's feasible, that's possible. And just ended up talking myself into just jumping 2 feet deep into the deep end with Arc Valley Entertainment.
Right.
And it was really one of those things where I hit the ground running. Of course, I tried to start booking a lot of trivia nights, karaoke nights, weekly residencies, family-friendly stuff, Christian lifestyle-friendly stuff, and things like that. I do take a pretty strong stance of trying to stay away from bar, nightclub scene and things that are too over the top. With that, I do try to stay family and Christian friendly. And that was round one. Let me get these booked. Let me try to fill days of the week. If I'm working Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, having different events at different places every week, I mean, that's monthly income. That's something I can rely on. That's something, because bookings come and bookings go, ceremonies, weddings, events, things like that. Those are nice, but those are on weekend. You can't make a living that way, right? So I was like trying to figure out a way to formulate a way to make a living out of entertainment, DJing, and things like that. That started to go really well. kind of, I guess, full circle into our meeting and kind of how that took place is when Brad Rowe reached out to me, and that was a big turning point for my business. Is
Right.
him and I had previously worked together at formulating a radio show at the radio station pertaining to veterans.
Right.
And then I parted ways, and it was maybe about 6 months, a year later, Brad and the veterans show at the radio station parted ways. And Brad reached out to me and was looking for ways to kind of keep that show afloat and keep that show going. And that's when we kind of birthed the idea of the Facebook live streaming that's been so successful
Right.
for the business.
Right.
And that really started with the veterans show. Brad Rowe reaching out to me, and I was like, I really don't know what to do or how to even remotely replicate the kind of reach for a radio station. It's like I don't know how to get your information out there like that. And there's just thinking, brainstorming and thinking, and finally came across the Facebook Live thing. It's like, hey,
Right.
we can push this out. We can get 10,000, 11,000
Yeah.
views on things. We can get eyes in front of this and ears in front of this, and this can work. And it did. That evolved into the AV connection,
Right.
which we sat down with the other day.
Right.
And that's
Yeah.
been a big blessing, supporting local business owners, entrepreneurs, artists, athletes, so
Right.
on and so forth of the community.
And so you have a lot of things going on with Arc Valley Entertainment. We'll make sure that we put a link
Right.
to Arc Valley Entertainment so that you can click on that and see all the things that Trent is going. But that's kind of the foundation. That's where
Right.
that's where you're at now.
Right. Full time.
Full-time.
About 5 years now.
About
5 years.
5 years. And so what I want to do is kind of build on that and kind of, if you think about where you are right now, I want to go back a little bit and kind of see how God was at work in your life that gets you to the place where you are right now. But before we do that, kind of in the vein of the Sean Ryan podcast, everyone gets a gift.
Okay.
Everyone gets a gift. And we had talked about this before, that you didn't have one of these. And,
Oh,
and when you talk
wow.
about a story, I
Very cool.
want to give you, that's the book that I wrote.
Thank you. I appreciate
and
that.
that's the story. That's my story, actually God's story. But take that with you and you'll learn a little bit about myself. But
Very cool. Thank you so much.
yes.
That's cool.
But I want to go back, and I want to kind of I want to put the bones on this story that you have, how you got to where you are, walking with the Lord, how that influenced your life, and how we came to meet, and subsequently a number of times you filled in for the pulpit here
been
at
amazing.
Emmanuel Mennonite. So Trent Ryan, tell me your story.
Well, Derek.
That's the thing I want to start with, is that idea. Tell me about your childhood and tell me about where God played a part in it or didn't play a part in it, how you grew up, and kind of got to that idea of going out on your own. So kind of your first childhood there, and share with me a little bit about Trent Ryan.
First and foremost, Derek, I want to thank you. It is an honor to be here and your first
Mm-hmm.
guest on the podcast. And I know you were kind of prepping me with the questions beforehand and had me thinking of, starting this story at childhood. And you just said something of how did the Lord shape and walking with the Lord, and how did that shape the outcome and things like that. And, I know you're familiar with a lot of parts of my story. And I kind of had to smirk a little bit when you said that, because I was like, man, unfortunately, and I don't say this proudly, but I think a lot of the character development was shaped from running from the Lord more so than walking. I've been walking with the Lord strongly now and fully committed for probably going into my second, maybe third year. This has been a big revival of faith and a big turnaround for me. And like you said, with the radio experience and the business experience, and now in seminary and training and getting my pulpit hours in and being a part of a lot of different churches and congregations, that's just been the results of the last couple of years of just finally being obedient.
Sure.
I was talking to some friends about this yesterday. I said, I think I made that joke to you, is like, I was the one. When we talk about, he left the 99 to get the one.
Right.
And boy, I was a scoundrel. I was pesky. It took several attempts throughout my life to be, in my mid 30s to finally, kind of submit and come back to the 99. And it's been a blessed experience since. But when I look back, I always want to say, I grew up secular, but it's much deeper than that. Like I when I look back at distant memories, my grandmother was devout Methodist,
Okay.
very devout. Piano in the house,
Uh-huh.
played every Sunday. She
Right.
till she was 87 years old. She gave it every Sunday she had until she passed, and um, very very strict in her faith, very very expectant, and obviously put a lot of that pressure on her children, i.e., my mother, right? So when my mother got to the point of having kids and having me and raising me, I do remember for the first maybe 10 years of my life, I would think started maybe around 5 and ended up leaving maybe around 10 to 13, raised as a Baptist.
Oh, okay.
And was taken to church on Sundays. I do have very distant memories of some VBS and some things like that, little kid stuff. And then I do kind of remember the turning point. It was one of those. Unfortunately, my parents were unequally yoked when it came to that. So my mother was still trying to kind of push that and at least have that as a part of my life from her upbringing, and found value in that. Whereas the father side was not really endorsing that, or
Sure.
not really supporting that, not really destructing or destroying, but just not coming, not in support, not participating, things like that. And then there was a situation, I believe, tender age of about 10 to 13. I think it was a VBS. It was a VBS thing, kind of like at recess. Long story short, we were playing a game outside, ran into another kid and fell back and landed on my hand and broke my hand. The only reason that's really relevant is because that then became a pretty vicious liability argument, dispute between my family and the church, to the point where the church actually, I don't think inevitably ever took financial liability, and that was something that my family had to take full financial liability for. I guess for my parents, that was kind of the final nail in the coffin as far as pursuing raising me in the church. I remember that's kind of when it all ended, right? And we weren't going in Sundays anymore. We were going to grandma's house now, and we were doing different things. Football
Right.
became big, and different things like that. So continuing forward, it wasn't, 2, 3, 4 years later when I was 16, parents split up, and there's a big separation, and that definitely changed a big, I guess, the entire course of my life. I went from a very small town, was relocated to a much larger city, a much different culture and atmosphere. I went from the safe white picket fence, small little town to a very kind of violent and gang activity city. Things that, it wasn't necessarily a good place or a good neighborhood to be in. And that was a really big culture shock. I went from a very small school, from a 2A school to a 5A school, kind of overnight. And that was a whole different experience, and the different cultures and the different things there. I always say I went from being like a 4-sport athlete to and like a A student, A B student, to a full blown dropout in like less than a year. And
Really?
it was, I guess, when I look back, not so much the trauma from the separation itself and the relocation itself. It's just like what I gravitated towards and what I got myself into when I got there. And it was like, growing up in a small town, we laugh and joke about it, but, you grow up drinking. I got to this new area, and the few things that I had in common with people was I could drink, I could smoke, and I could chew tobacco. And that kind of led me down a rabbit hole of, I wasn't prepared for how deep their rabbit hole went. We kept it, beer, chew, and cigarettes, and they definitely took it a lot deeper. And that was my first exposure to anything like that, deeper on the drug spectrum
Right.
than cigarettes and beer.
Right.
So I think there was a lot of probably subconscious self-medicating. I mean, obviously there is trauma and things happening at that time of a parental separation or relocation, so dramatic and things like that. And definitely fell down the pretty deep rabbit hole of drug addiction. And
Mm-hmm.
that was something that succumbed me, like I said, at the 16, almost 17 years old, my junior year of high school. I dropped out of high school to pursue an active career in drugs.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, that career took me 5 or 6 years to kick. I was pretty deep in it up until my 21st, 22nd birthday. Went through a lot of really, really, really bad experiences during that time. I mean, it was street life. It was, gang culture was involved in there. Did and saw a lot of things that still just amaze me to this day.
Right.
That I was even looking back at that, a lot of PTSD, a lot of violence, a lot of things like that, and was in that lifestyle for about 5 or 6 years straight.
Mm-hmm.
Lost a lot of people, lost a lot of friends, a lot of overdoses, a lot
Yeah.
of people being locked up in prison and never seeing them again, and different things like that. So that was at, like I said, the tender age of about 16 to 21, 22. And that was kind of right through my development and
Right.
my career. That's when you're supposed to be, graduating high school and planning college and planning the rest of your life and really getting your feet set under you for the rest of your life. And I definitely smoked that whole window. I
Right.
was
Sure.
22, 23, trying to get my life back together and trying to get a GED.
Mm-hmm.
And that was the situation. And thankfully, I was always kind of naturally intelligent. I mean, I knew my way around tests and studying and
Mm-hmm.
things like that. And even though I did drop out, didn't even see the ending of a junior year in high school, and didn't pursue any type of academia during those
Mm-hmm.
5 or 6 years, I was able to get myself back into like GED testing
Right.
and training, and they put you through a few different prep classes and things like that. And I always remember the first prep class, I really excelled at the pre-test that they gave me. Just fresh off the street, I was,
Mm-hmm.
only a few months in recovery. Like I said, hadn't been around a textbook in 5 or 6 years. Came in and took this pre-test and passed it with a really strong score, to the point where they actually approached me and said, "Hey, you don't even need to come to these.
Mm-hmm.
There's like 3 or 4 left in the series before the actual test, and they're like, you don't even really need to come."
Mm-hmm.
I didn't really, I knew where I had been. I knew what had been going on. I was like,
Right.
I didn't really have much trust in that. So I was like, well, if it's okay with you, I'd still like to come. And I ended up finishing out the classes, took the GED, got accepted, passed the GED. And the community college at the time that I was working with through the GED program, they had um, a thing where they offered you a free semesters of tuition
Mm.
if you come in with a GED through their program. I didn't even know this at the time. I was just trying to get a GED. So they gave me that, and then they gave me this opportunity of, hey, well, if you sign up for the fall, you get tuition free. You still have to pay your books and fees and da 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 da
Right.
da, student center fee, everything else, but
Yeah.
tuition's off for one semester. So I was able to go into that. And I always laugh. I finished that semester with a strong 0.69 GPA.
Mm.
That's where it really hit me. That's where the social anxiety, the social outcastism, the
Mm-hmm.
different me being in the streets 5 or 6 years prior to that
Sure.
and not being in school since I was a junior,
Yeah.
that's when that all really caught up to me. And
Right.
I was super overwhelmed, and I didn't fit in well, and I wasn't blending, I wasn't mixing, I couldn't stay focused in classes. Like I said, I still wasn't very far removed from that lifestyle. So I'm still getting news on a daily basis of friends passing away. We're losing another one to,
Right.
I'm not far enough removed from that. And things are just really, really weird and awkward for me. So I finished that semester and I go into the workforce. I remember I worked at a hardware shop for like
Mm-hmm.
another year or two after that. And continued the sobriety, continued, that clean lifestyle. But from this whole time of the broken hand as a child to now I'm, 25,
Mm-hmm.
24, 25, working in a hardware shop. God was not anywhere in
Right.
that picture. It's
Right.
not like I was anti or anything like that, but I was just so far separated. It wasn't anywhere a part of my life or
Yeah.
anyone around me's life. I was very secular at
Yeah.
that point. I was just fully in that lifestyle.
And so you've been dealing with all, obviously, from the story, very traumatic
Right.
things. And there is this. It sounds like this desire to have more, and so I want to jump forward to when was it in your life as you continued on with this? When was it at your life that God made an entrance on the stage for you? I'm a firm believer that even and I talk about it in the book, that even in these storms of life, God is continually at work in
Right.
your life, and no doubt He was there with you through all these tough times. But at some point in time, He makes His entrance on the stage, and you recognize Him for the first time. Maybe not an acceptance, but this idea of, hey, wait a second, something's at play here. When was that? And take me forward in the play of you turning your life over to Christ, and how did He first show up in your story?
So I bomb out of college. I'm at the
Uh-huh.
hardware shop. It's been about two years since the failed college attempt, and I'm now that separation is there. Things are, I've gotten away from the friends, the communication. I'm not getting,
Right.
alerts and notifications. There's a lot more separation between that part of my life and this part of my life now. And now I'm dating an individual who's now she's looking to make a college decision and go to college, and she's motivating me to apply and go with her. And that's kind of how I ended up in this area back home again in the valley was going to Otero College.
Okay.
And so she came down here, and I was actually able. I did come. I got accepted. Thank God. That's a big thing. 0.69 GPA.
Yeah.
But boy, they had open enrollment that year.
Yeah.
So they took anybody, and
Yeah.
thank God they did, because I never would have got in. And even I always
Right.
remember the dean just looked at me. He's like, "Man, I really hope this isn't a waste of all of our time." And I'm
Yeah.
like, "Sir, I'm really going to try to make it not be."
Yeah.
I actually was able to stay the full 2 years. I got my associate's degree. At the time, I was a artist in the form of like acrylic paint, and
Sure.
that's what I graduated with from Otero, was an associates of arts with an emphasis in studio art. And I had a scholarship to go to Adams State, an in-state college here, and this is where it all took a turn. I graduate from the community college. I go for the summer, maybe only a few weeks in summer, and I have this very like weird, random, extreme wisdom tooth infection that put me on my deathbed, literally. So
Really?
I get the wisdom tooth. Long story short, I get the wisdom tooth extracted. Next day, I wake up and I'm like Squidward from SpongeBob
Really?
SquarePants. My gills are floated clear
Yeah.
out to my chest. I'm full of infection and pain and everything. They rushed me off to the hospital. I'm not in the hospital 10-15 minutes before they're prepping me for emergency surgery.
Really?
I don't even remember too much of that. They put me under. They cut my neck open. They all that good stuff. I wake up a day later in ICU, and I've got all these monitors. I'm hooked up head to toe with monitors, and I'm trying to make sense of what's going on. They're checking in on me of, the infection was so strong and so near my lymph nodes, and they still weren't even like sure if they were able to like get it all and drain
Right.
it all. So they were watching. So at any given point, that infection could touch a lymph node and just wipe me out, is what they were saying. And that's why all these monitors that I had almost like 30-second, 60-second rotating check-ins. I had
Really?
a nurse come in every about 60 seconds to
Really?
make sure I wouldn't croak, dude.
Wow.
And it's just this really weird thing of a pain in your tooth, and then you go get it. It just was such a small situation that escalated so large. And I'm asking these questions, and I'm like, well, I can't eat. They're giving me ice chips, and I can't eat. I got a big, in my neck, and I can't eat anything. I can't eat any applesauce, anything but ice chips for days.
Wow.
And I'm like, how long am I here? And they're like, we don't really know. And we're like, dude, we're just trying to make sure you live right now. Like, we can get to that later, cross
Right.
that bridge if we get to it, type of conversations. And I'm like, man, this is wicked. I'm like laying there, and I always remember being in the hospital, and it was March Madness on the TV. They were playing reruns. It was middle of the summer, but they were playing March Madness reruns on TV. I'm laying in the hospital, and I'm like, man, this is so crazy. And I'm thinking back of all that street life, you know, the gang violence, the all these different things that I was able to survive and that I had been through that hadn't taken me out. And now here I am, you know, 25 years old on my deathbed, fighting for my life in the hospital over a tooth infection gone awry.
Right.
And I was like, man, that's so ironic. I remember just kind of dwelling in the ironicness of it all and watching this basketball game. And for no real apparent reason at all, like I said, it had to have been 15 years since I've been to a church. I kind of just closed my eyes and prayed to God. And that's when I was like, God, you know, if you get me out of this, and I was watching it was one of those bail me out magic genie,
you
but
bet.
I was very
Sure,
young,
been there.
you know.
Yeah.
This was a please bail me out prayer, dude. Please, I don't deserve it, but bail me out. Basketball was a sport that that was when I was in my small town and my four-sport athlete life. Basketball was my primary sport. That was a sport that when my life took a turn and I got relocated and my lifestyle changed, that was always kind of like a regret of mine.
Right.
So now here I am in the hospital watching this basketball's in my face, and I'm like, man, you know. And it was looking back, it was so funny, but I was like, God, if you get me out of this, I'll go play basketball. You know, like I'll try to do something with myself. Like I'll try to pick up where I left off. Like I'll go. Sure enough, man, a week later, I'm released from the hospital. So
Now you got to make good on your promise.
now I got to make good on my promise.
Yeah.
So I'm kind of stranded. My opportunity with the scholarship and the 4-year school, that I'm in the hospital the whole summer. That didn't happen. That washed away, and that didn't work out. So I kind of re-enrolled myself into another community college. I already had a 2-year degree, but I was like, I'm stuck. I'm kind of stuck in a thing right now, and I just want to stay active, and I want to stay busy, keep my mind and body in the right place, you know, still in recovery and doing it, trying to maintain stability. So I end up at another community college. They're like, yeah, you come here for 1 year, we'll give you another associate. So I was like, can't be anything wrong with that. You know, I had a gym membership. I was able to stay active and keep myself in the world of academia. And that's really where it started, because I had lost a lot of weight in the hospital when I was going through that situation. And I used to be, you know, very, very big. And so I went in and wanted to start trying to run miles on the treadmills, different things like that. 2-3 weeks into the let me run a mile on the treadmill every day thing, some guy comes up out of nowhere, approaches me. He's like, hey, dude, you're big. You run every day. Do you play basketball? I'm like, man, it's been a long time. And I was like, I used to. And I was like, but I know, you know, the effects that, you know, drugs have on your mechanics and different things like that. I'm still trying to get my mechanics back together. To this day is still something that I work on, you know, micro, macro, and different things like that from previous damage. But I was like, yeah, man, you know, he's like, hey, we play pickup at a church every Wednesday night here in town. You should come play with us. The grown man league, old man league, 20, 30-year-old league. I was like, I'd love to, you know. End up showing up. Me and this guy kind of had instant chemistry on the court. We're playing pickup. We kind of play similar. We feed off of each other. We're working well together, and we're pretty dominant. He starts inviting me to other pickup. Well, this is kind of like the beginner pickup, or like not as high level. There's other. Tuesday night is really elite, and Sunday nights we don't even go to because we can't hang. But now I want to invite you to all the above, and let's go run these games. So here I am. I'm in this weekly pickup basketball league, and we're playing well and competing. He was kind of a similar story as me. Didn't finish high school. Was getting his life back together. We didn't know any basketball coaches, right? To save our lives. And we were like, we wanted to try to get critique on our game. That was the big plan. So we had our girlfriends at the time like, hey, take videos of us and take videos of our play. And our big idea was to send these videos off to a bunch of college coaches on the other side of the country that could never come back and laugh at us or mock at us or tell other people, oh, these idiots submitted their tape and they suck. You know, we had all these fears. And then so we pulled up emails. You can go to any college website and find an email to a coach, right? And so we chose all the assistants. We didn't want to bug the head coaches, and we sent these little clips out, these little iPhone clips out to all these different coaches. And we're just like, hey, if you could just take a few minutes and critique our game, maybe tell us a few things we could work on, what you see, what, you know, kind of approached it that way. For the first 2 weeks, we sent those videos. We didn't hear back anything. And it was like, man, we kind of got down ourselves like, we suck, you know, like we're not even worth like a response, you know. And then all of a sudden we started getting some emails back, and they were like, "Oh, hey, yeah, we work on this. The big guy needs to work on his left hand. The little guy needs to work on this, and different things like that." We're like, "Okay, cool." And then all of a sudden, a couple days later go by, and we're prepping for we're at a church,
Right.
getting ready for a game that night. And my teammate comes up to me, and he's kind of got this weird vibe to him. And I was like, "Hey, bro, what's going on?" He's like, "Well, we got some more emails from some more coaches today." I was like, "Okay." And he was like, "Well, they want you to come play."
Oh.
And I was just like flabbergasted,
Yeah.
and he was kind of a little frustrated. He wasn't
Yeah.
getting those opportunities. He was the better player than me, admittedly. But like my coach, you can't teach 6'6", right? So they wanted the big guy, and he was better skill wise, but he didn't have the size, and I had this, and they were after the size. And I was like, "You've got to be kidding me." And he's like, "No." He's like, there's been like 3 or 4 schools that have reached out that have really been interested. And so I go back and I'm kind of I'm emailing these guys. I was like, "Guys, I didn't graduate high school. I don't have an ACT or SAT score. I don't have a GPA. I do have an associate's degree. I actually have 2 of them.
Yeah.
For no reason, but but that's a bigger story, right? But I was like, I do have like 2 associates. They're like, "Oh yeah, we can transfer you in with those, no problem." I was like, "Really?" I was like, "The fact that I'm like 27 doesn't, matter." And they're like, "No. This is like D3. This is Christian college. We have a little bit different eligibility. We're lower level, so we can get you in here just fine."
So where do you end up going?
I end up in Minnesota.
Really?
I had a coach from Minnesota.
At a Christian college?
At a Christian college. I'm not a Christian to save my life. I always tell people I had to have pastoral references.
Right.
And I didn't have one. I couldn't get one. I didn't know a single pastor in my life. A buddy I knew, his cousin was an ordained minister of the Wiccan faith. A certificate she had got herself off of the internet, but sure enough, it was a state of Colorado. It was a state of Colorado ordained Wiccan minister certificate.
Really? I gotta look that up.
So I said, "Hey, that's got to work."
Yeah.
And so we used her as my ministry pastoral
man,
reference,
God's working.
and that's how I even got into this school. So, anyways, I get to this school. It's crazy that I'm even there. I know I don't belong there. I'm riding this wave. I'm like, this is crazy. I'm out in Minnesota. I'm going to school. Things are cool. It's a Bible college. It's not even just a Christian college. It's
a Bible college.
So I don't know anything. I don't know. We're saying the Lord's Prayer, right? And I look back. It's so funny. Lord, those people were so patient with me, and I just didn't understand it at first because I was still very. My attitude wasn't where it needed to be. My belief wasn't where it needed to be. But I look at that experience as like God took me to the Arctic tundra to kind of break me and put me back into where I needed to be. So I stuck it out. I always say I kind of faked it. I jumped through the hoops. I mean, I studied the courses. It was course material. I told you I was strong intellectually growing up, so I just took notes and knew how to get good grades and was there for the basketball. I went to some great places through basketball, and it was New York City, Philadelphia, all these places that I'd never thought I would see. Basketball took us there, and sure enough, it spirals into the situation. A few years later, small Bible college, and they shut down unexpectedly. Okay. And now it's this big thing of all the players are being cherry picked. We're all getting offers from schools that we've been playing against. So I get picked up by a school in Missouri State. Okay. And I end up down there.
Is it a Bible college? Is it a Christian college?
Yeah, another Bible college.
Another Bible
college. And I'm still at the same place, dude. I'm not. I've learned a lot more. So now I know the Lord's Prayer just because I've been in school. I've been around it. I know Oceans now. I didn't the first year and a half, but I know Oceans now. I'm playing the part a lot stronger by the time I get to this second. Yeah. But I still say playing the part because, dude, I wasn't in any type of belief. I wasn't in any type of. I was just taking advantage of the situation, doing what they were asking of me, and playing the part. Yeah. I didn't last there. I washed out of there probably by about October. There was some personal stuff that took place back in Minnesota, some loose ends and things that I didn't get taken care of that kind of drugged me out of there. I washed out of that and didn't finish with the bachelor's degree again until much later. So I was 3 years into college, ended up washing out of that. Went through 3 years of Bible college and didn't leave with an inkling more belief than I came with. that's for me. I wasn't there for that. I didn't even try to pursue faith. I was having the time of my life,
Sure.
taking advantage of a Willy Wonka ticket. I
Yeah.
was like, this is crazy. I don't even belong here. Let
Yeah.
me do whatever.
Yeah.
So
So where in the story then does God grab you and say, "Hey, Trent,
I wash out.
today's your day, man."
I wash out of Missouri.
Uh-huh.
I come back to Colorado.
Okay.
A couple of years go by. I meet a girl. I get married.
Uh-huh.
I spend another handful of years married.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, that was a very unequally yoked, very
Yeah.
toxic situation.
Yeah.
And when that came to an end, there was some adultery and some different things there, and a lot of betrayal. Best way to say it is I got my heart broken.
Okay.
I never really understood what it meant to have my heart broken,
Right.
but and this was only about 2-3 years ago. So now we're catching up to like current time.
Now we're current here.
I'm still living secularly.
Mm-hmm.
I've gone through all this college and everything, but I came back home, got married and all this, and this
Yep.
is still a very secular relationship. I'm still very secular and not faith driven whatsoever. And it's another one of those, like I said, to start the story is, he came back several times. I was a very
Right.
stubborn one. I was
Sure.
very pesky. He came several times trying to bail, and I kept, my worldly, and I look at it, it wasn't like a defiance. It was like a naivety, like an
Right.
ignorance. I didn't even understand what was happening. I didn't have that exposure to faith in my life
Sure.
to even understand what was happening or make sense of any of it. I was just living, get my heart broken, betrayal. I'm crushed, dude.
Yeah.
I've had a hard life to this point.
Yep.
Broken family guy. All I really want is stability and somebody to love me. And I finally thought I had like achieved that. And a couple years later, it turned south on me too. And that was just and looking back, I don't know why. But dude, that hit me harder than any of the past.
Sure.
That just hit me so hard. I was just so tired and so I just felt so old. And I was like, man, this was supposed to be, my life, the rest of my life. I really was invested in my life with this person, and it just got flipped on me upside down overnight and just taken
Yep.
away from me. And I was just devastated. Dude, I was bedridden. I was broken for months. God, months, man. Just couldn't even get up, and I just everything reminded all that, and I just could not even keep myself composed.
Sure.
I couldn't have conversations with people, and that's one thing that I really, really thank the community for and the AV connection for, is because if not for that show during that time and that responsibility of coming and meeting with guys and talking about their business, their events, their nonprofits, all of this, that show drug me out of the hole so many days.
Yeah.
Got me up, got me cleaned up, got me. I didn't want to be there. I'm so glad Facebook switched over to deleting all the old videos, because God, if you go back and look at some of those during that time, you can just see it on me. I'm not in a good place, know, but kept me moving, kept me going.
Yeah. And so you're broken at this particular time, and
I pray.
yeah.
For the first time since the hospital 10 years prior.
No
and
kidding.
that's what I'm saying. That's God kept, he knew I was hard-headed.
Yep.
And here I am, and I can't kick this heartbreak. It's been months, dude.
Yep.
I'm my finances are struggling. Like this is starting to really affect me as like a person, and I can't kick this thing.
Yep.
And I pray.
Yeah.
And I said, God, please, man, heal me of this. Like, just get me through this. Bail me out once again.
Right.
Get me on my feet again. And now here I am making promises again to God.
Yeah.
I fulfilled the last one, right? I went and played basketball for him. So here I am saying I'm secular and not, but I'm kind of having this very distant. I'm still honoring.
Sure.
I get out of the hospital and I still honor the promise.
Right.
He made a covenant. You bail me out of this, I'll go play basketball.
Yeah.
And I did. I
Yeah.
still honored that. I was like, I kind of made God a promise, dude.
Yeah.
So I guess there was belief there, very, very dim, but there was this responsibility I felt of honoring covenant to God.
Sure.
So here I am again, 10 years later, heartbroken, crying out to God for help again. Bail me out of this one again. Make another promise, and my promise is I'll go back and finish my ministry. You've always, with the college and the all those different basketball experience and Bible college experience. Here I am with over 100 credits in Bible college that are just like existing
Yeah.
for no reason, just
Yeah.
sitting there.
Yeah.
And this was my big promise of, God, bail me out of this one, and I'm gonna get back into ministry and back into God. Dude, it wasn't 2 days later. It had to be the next morning. I get this email from an old professor. You can't even make this up. I
Yeah.
promise.
Yeah.
A professor from the Bible college I went to in Minnesota.
Yeah.
It's been 8 years,
Yeah.
9 years since I had been there, had talked to this man, had anything. What ended up happening in their world, the school gets shut down. Apparently, unbeknownst to me, the ministry out there never stopped
Oh,
fighting,
okay.
scathing, clawing, working,
Uh-huh.
and ended up 8 years later finally landing a partnership with
Really?
Hope International University, one of the biggest, Christian non-denominational universities in the world,
Yeah.
out of Burbank,
Yeah.
and end up nailing a direct partnership with them, and start and launch a training, a seminary, a ministry training and seminary program out
Sure.
of the old campus that I attended. It's still there now. And what this email was him reaching out saying, hey, we've started this. We have these certification programs and these seminary programs coming up, and just wanted to reach out. They sent a blast to all the old college students.
Yeah.
They still had all that email information, and I
Right.
just happened to still get this email. And hey, since you used to come here, we're offering you free tuition. So here I am. If you were to enroll in these certificate programs and these training programs, SALT program is what they're calling
Right.
it. It's free tuition. Same thing. You got to pay the books,
Yeah.
and pay your way through everything else. And I was just like, dude, this can't be. When you ask when did God really reach out and
Right.
slap you and grab you and get your attention? It was the immediate turnaround of, here I am praying and making promises to heal a broken heart, and I'm going to devote myself back to ministry if you do so. And then here comes an email out of the
Right.
wild blue yonder,
Yeah.
with an opportunity that is indescribable,
Yeah.
unexplainable. There's something bigger here, and that's when it really hit me. And that's when I was really like, dude, from that morning on, I was a full believer.
Right.
It was just through bashing my head against a brick wall for so long, and just, I guess for me, it was always kind of that tangible proof, right?
Sure.
I was
Yeah.
always, being a secular guy, as I say, it's
Yeah.
kind of a complicated story, but spending more than 60% of my life completely secular,
Yeah.
and looking in on it from those lenses, I was always I need a tangible proof
Yeah.
kind of guy. I need that
Yeah.
and when he slapped me with that, that's when I was
That
like,
was it.
whoa,
Yeah.
whoa.
Yeah, and some people need, some people have that warm feeling. Some people need that proof, and that's the thing that I think is so fantastic about God, the individual way that He meets people where they are, being broken, and saying, "Okay, Trent, I got to show Trent. I got to show it," and so He does, and
Couldn't make logic of it. I was
yeah,
a logic
yeah,
rationale guy.
yeah.
Dude, this is unexplainable.
Yeah.
The probability
Yeah.
of this happening naturally. We're talking about
Yeah.
one in how many billionths
Sure.
of a probability of a
Yeah.
chance
Yeah.
that this all aligned this way on this 2 days. It's
Right.
mathematically impossible.
Right.
And that was always kind of my thing, is like, that just broke the matrix. Like,
Yeah.
dude, that's divine.
Yeah.
That's divine power. That supersedes any type of man-made rationale that
Yeah.
we can put on it.
Yeah.
And that's what did it. I was like, dude, that lit my flame, lit my
Yeah.
fire, dude. There was that right there.
And been burning since.
Been burning since, and I was just like, man, now I have to make do of the promise.
Yeah.
I'm a big promise. I stay true to my word, and we all slip and fall at different times, but I'm like an integrity guy. Promises mean a lot to me, and so now here I am, just honoring the promise.
Yeah.
And I've told you since we've met, and you've started being an amazing mentor to me and helping me through this whole process, and I just kind of laid it on you the first day we met. It's like, dude, I'm being like bombarded with God right now, and
Yeah.
he's bringing a lot of stuff to me, and wants me to go a lot of places and do a lot of things.
Yeah.
And bro, I'm very new at this, and
Yeah.
I'm like, I want to be there and do
Sure.
what he's asking me to do, but I'm kind of over my head.
Yeah.
And I remember you were
Yeah.
just super kind, man, and just your mentorship really helped me through
Yeah.
that. But my I guess my motive was to just always go when called.
Yeah.
Right. And that's same with this thing here and this interview here this morning, the Bible ceremony I told you about this morning,
Sure.
different things. There's always that, from what I've realized, and when you're trying to be in tune with the Spirit, there's that voice.
Yeah.
People in the secular world call it a conscience. And
Right.
I guess it still could be that.
Yeah.
But I look at it as more as like that's your direct line of communication with the Holy Spirit.
Right.
He's in your ear. He's trying to tell you. It's one of those things of, you ever leave the house in the morning and you look at something and something's like, grab that.
Yeah.
And you're like, no, I don't need that. I'm not going to grab that.
Yeah.
And you don't. And
Yeah.
then an hour later, you're out in the world and
Yeah.
I should have grabbed that.
Yeah.
That's to me, that's the
Yeah.
Holy Spirit, right? And he works that way through everything. Dude.
Sure.
When you hear that pull, and my thing, one of my favorite verses became Isaiah 6:8. I told you I passed that along this morning.
Yeah.
Choose me, Lord, I will go. Who will
Right.
go and do our bidding? And I raised my hand and I said, Lord, choose me, for I will go.
Right.
That's always kind of been my promise back to, here I am middle-aged, like I said, in my mid-30s. I've kind of bombed everything for myself to this point. So I really was just like, dude, I don't have much of a life to sacrifice.
Right.
Honestly, I've relocated a lot. I've gone through a lot of different relationships. I don't have steady family relationships, steady family ties, steady personal relationships. Every friend I have now is 3 or 4 years old, and that's how it's always kind of been. And then
Right.
move on to the next place. And
Yeah.
so I was like, I don't have much of a life to sacrifice in order to give to God. I was like, man, me giving my life to God is what's only ever created opportunity for myself. The last time I gave my life to God got me clear across the country playing basketball and all these different. So
Yeah.
I'm looking at it as like, I'm going to, at this point, now that he just slapped me in the face with it, now here I am taking classes with my old professor from, I was like, now that he's made it very, very aware and obvious, I feel like, and that's, I guess, my Moses or my Joe, or how I still have retribution to seek for my
Sure.
past.
Sure.
I'm the Paul. A lot of people have compared me to Paul.
Yeah. Yeah.
That I just feel like it's he's using me now, and I have like a solid 30 years to make up for.
Yeah.
That I spent outside
Yeah.
of his
And that's
kingdom and being
Yeah.
kind of an enemy to his kingdom. And now that I'm a part of his kingdom, he's definitely getting his work out of me. And I love that, and I appreciate it, and that's taken me places I've never
Sure.
thought possible as well. It's been an amazing experience, and he's been behind the scenes the whole way.
Yeah.
I'm taking a course now, and it's a survey through the Old Testament and seeing Jesus through
Right.
the Old Testament. And that's
Right.
kind of how I feel with this story. Is like, it feels so detached, it sounds so detached, but when you go back and really kind of look at it,
you
God
see
was
him.
there the whole time.
God was
I
there
was
the whole time.
pesky rascal and didn't want to listen, didn't want to see it. But I am very thankful for, those first few years in the church.
Sure.
And, now that I'm older and getting back into church, and there's that saying of, a kid raised in church will return to church. And so during those like imprinting years, like I said, VBS and Awanas and all that, I was deep into church lifestyle.
Right.
And I would really like to think that had an effect on the return as well, that I
Right.
did have that foundation that I was kind of unaware of. It was very subconscious. It was back there very, very far and under a lot of years and a lot of trauma, but it was still there nonetheless.
Sure.
And it kind of just brought this full connection. And I do really appreciate that the time out of in the secular world that I was able to spend, because it's made my journey now and my walk a lot more unique.
Right.
We've talked about this before, and I don't like the word, but I haven't found another one. Indoctrinated. I haven't been indoctrinated in anything. I haven't been raised as a Lutheran, as a Methodist,
Right.
as a I haven't been indoctrinated in anything.
Right.
And that's kind of created a bit of a criticalness. I've shared some of those conversations with you. As
Yeah.
I'm still battling that. I have that outside looking in perspective at times, and still look at things very critical and very. I'm definitely just not jumping in full of faith of everything I see and read. I'm still working
Right.
my way and weeding my way through it.
Sure.
Which has created, I think, a very well-rounded spiritual growth for me, and I've been able to chase, the truth, and really not shy away from those tough questions and those
Yeah.
contradictions and inconsistencies that we
Yeah.
see in the Bible and in the faith and things, like kind of just call them straight out. And like I said, thankful for you and the other pastors and my ministry support is being able to help me through those
Sure.
questions and understand where I'm coming from. It's like, I'm not attacking, I'm trying to understand. I don't have that basic foundation everyone else has.
Right.
And I don't have just that pure, unadulterated belief in everything,
Right.
that I'm converting back into. So I just think that's, going through my classes and being able to talk, and I really like how that's given me the skill set of communicating amongst, the common people. Against, I can communicate with people that haven't been to church. I understand
Yeah.
that transition of coming in. I told you this morning, a gentleman in his mid-20s now, trying to transition into
Right.
church. There's, like I said, there's a big people that have been raised their whole lives, have left, come back, whatever have you, but that midlife transition back into is a
Right.
very unique place to be. And
Yeah.
especially if it's not back into, and it's maybe even for the first time, you're trying to accept faith and walk with Christ as a 25-year-old individual, never had a Bible
Yeah.
type of situation. I can really relate to that and try to help guidance and experience through those kind of
And that's
situations.
the great thing about your story, and I appreciate you sharing it. It's a great story. There's parts of it that are just horrifyingly terrible. The things that you've gone through, and each one of us has that kind of story, and maybe that's what this podcast can be. And so I appreciate you coming on and be willing to share that.
Of course.
Being willing to open up.
Just hoping it can, like you said, help somebody or help someone, maps, as you explained.
And it's a beautiful thing to be able to share that story. And I couldn't ask for a better first episode. So thank you very much for sharing that. Of course, our prayers are that God continues to speak to you. God continues to lead you. And one of the things that I heard from the story that I think a lot of people can, that first time that you said, "Okay, God, if you get me out of this, I'll go play basketball," and seeing in that story, you went and played basketball to fulfill that promise, but as we often do, went to play basketball for me.
Yeah,
right?
it was all for me.
And now it's okay. Now
All
I'm going
for
to
him.
do it for you. And so, hopefully, listening to Trent's story, there's a place that you can connect to. And if you're in the Valley, you can always get a hold of him through Ark Valley Entertainment if you want to share with him and hear a little bit more of his story. So thanks so much for coming on.
Thank you.
I appreciate it. Hopefully we'll have more and more stories as we bring people in from the Arkansas Valley to share their story of faith. I want to thank you for listening. And again, we'll put the links down below. You'll be able to get a hold of Trent. If you got an empty pulpit and you need to have somebody fill it,
I'd love to be there.
get Trent a call or give him an email. So thank you so much, brother, for coming on. And maybe if you want to share your story, get a hold of me through Emmanuel Mennonite Church. You'll see there on YouTube. You'll see the email. Get a hold of me, and you can come on the podcast and tell me your story. So for Trent, for myself, for everybody who's out there with a story, we all have them. Come and share them, and may God be glorified. We'll see you next time.